Thank you, Brittany. Thank you so much for that amazing presentation and spreading the awareness to us and also to the world. Before we begin our live Q&A session, just want to make sure everyone knows how to connect with you and where to get your book. So anything on social media, where do they find you?
Oh, yes. My Instagram is Brittany for Animals. That's Brittany for Animals, Brittany for Animals. On Facebook, I'm Brittany Michelson. And I don't have a website, actually. Like, I don't have a personal website, but my email address for my work for In Defense of Animals is brittany@idausa.org. So brittany@idausa.org. And I'll just give my work email instead of my personal one. Anybody can contact me. Well, actually, I could give my personal one too. It's just MISS dot, and then my last name, miss.michelson@gmail.com. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or if you want to connect further on everything.
Thanks for sharing that, Brittany. All right, so now we'll open up to the Q&A session. So first, I just want to explain to everyone how we do this here. We normally don't take questions from the chat, but instead we ask everyone to virtually raise their hand. If you're not sure how to do this, go to the bottom of your screen and click on the reactions tab. It should be at the bottom of the Zoom window, and then click the raised hand function in the menu that pops up. We'll take questions in the order which you receive them. And when it's your turn, we'll unmute you and prompt you to ask your question. And we ask everyone to keep their questions brief and on topic in order to give everyone a chance to get their questions answered. We won't be taking follow-up questions, so let's get ahead and get started. So I see we have a few questions coming up. I'll start asking a question here. So Brittany, you've been an activist for quite some time now. And based on your experience, what are some of the most effective tactics for promoting veganism and reducing meat consumption?
Well, first and foremost is raising awareness in whatever capacity that can be done. So part of raising awareness for me has been through writing the articles, some of which I shared with you today. And I've written many more than those. And so through my writing, I've been able to raise awareness to the public, and also so people can definitely utilize the creative arts. So besides writing, there's music, and there is art, like visual art and graphics, and all kinds of ways that we can kind of utilize our creativity to raise awareness about these topics. And then, just getting involved in actions, trying to join a local animal rights group, going to demos, and just talking to people, doing outreach, having conversations with people. The best way to raise awareness to create change for animals and the planet is to engage with people, to give them information, but also to listen and hear where they're coming from, and try to engage in a conversation so that we can shift hearts and minds.
And when you talk to people, right, do you feel kind of encouraged or discouraged by the entire movement? Are you optimistic or pessimistic about the future regarding the treatment of animals?
Well, both, in all honesty. I mean, it's easy to be pessimistic with the obscene number of non-human animals who are killed, on the daily, and just all the different forms of animal exploitation. I mean, it's not just the animals who are killed, but the ones who are, confined in cages, and they're trapped in zoos and marine parks. And I mean, the list goes on and on. So I wouldn't say I'm the most optimistic person when it comes to this, also because of the work I do as the campaign specialist for captive animals for IDA. I am just privy to so many animal issues that come at me. People reaching out, can IDA help with this? This issue and that issue. And so, yeah, although I did say earlier in my closing that I do feel like there's a shift, the tide is turning, and, things, I think I do feel some optimism in that regard, but it's overwhelming. It's really an overwhelming issue.
Awesome. Yeah, so the future is bright. So also we have, all right, so we'll take our first audience question. Roger, what is your question and where are you from?
Roger Test, Cokeville, Wyoming. I can't help but notice as I approach a dog that doesn't know me that often, regardless of the breed, they're very friendly, very open to interacting with humans. Do you see that in other animals? Any animal that you would say is similar in that response to human beings and contact with humans?
Yes. So using the example of dogs, I mean, dogs have been known for ages to be, man's best friend, and our connection with dogs in our families as, members of our families. But in my estimation, that can apply to any species because, again, I don't discriminate against species, and not to say that that's what you mean, but I see the potential. I see the personality in different species. Like, yeah, a snake is not going to respond the way that a dog does, but that doesn't change the snake's ability to feel pain, joy, fear, stress. So I really think as long as we kind of come back to this idea that all species are connected and that we all have the ability to feel joy, pain, fear, love, all of this, then we can start to honor other species, not just the animals who are considered companion animals, like the dogs and cats that so many people share their homes with, but we can extend that to reptiles and fish and all other animals. So just in short, while like I said, a snake or a fish is not going to respond the way a dog does, they all have their own personality. I mean, I really, really feel strongly about that. They just show themselves in different ways.
Thank you, Roger, for that. Thank you, Brittany. So next question I have is, let's see. All right. So does everyone have the right to eat whatever they want, even if it's an animal product?
Does everyone have the right to? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Doesn't everyone have a right to eat whatever they want, even if that is an animal product?
Well, I say no. And I start out by saying that it's not about what people are eating, it's who they're eating if we're talking about eating animals. So they're eating a cow, not a hamburger. They're eating a pig, not a hot dog. And so these labels on food items have really objectified animals. And I could go into a whole thing about that. But I believe that the consequences of the types of food, that people are eating, if they are eating animals, and I say eating animals instead of eating meat, the consequences are far too great. I mean, not only is it causing torture and death to the animals themselves, but as I illustrated through my presentation, it has serious detrimental effects on the planet, and not only our own health, and our own health is a personal choice. So I will say that what anybody, wants to do with their own health, if they want to smoke a pack of cigarettes a day or whatever, that's their choice. But public health, we all have an obligation in the realm of public health and the planet. So no, I don't believe that everybody should just be able to eat whatever they want if they're consuming animals.
And what do you say to people who say, oh, I'm a human being. It's natural for me to eat meat or animals, and it's part of our evolutionary history to do this. How do you respond to people who argue in that sense?
Well, I say that there are many things that are no longer acceptable in society. Thank goodness. There are things that are outdated, that change has occurred and they are not considered acceptable. They're not legal. And so we need to get on board and recognize that animals are not here for our consumption. They shouldn't be tortured and killed. And we just it's really our obligation as humans. And you said, I'm sorry, just to kind of back up, you said, what about people who say like that's how things were always done? Is that what you said?
Yeah, like let's say if it's someone who says, people who are prehistoric, or not prehistoric, sorry, people who are, and our predecessors, they ate meat,
right.
as they hunted, and they say,
Right.
oh, it's natural, it's based on our human evolution to do that.
Yeah, right. Well, times have changed. I mean, we're not living in those times of hunting and gathering. And so with the progression in society and the way that things have changed and over time, and so much is available, that there really is no reason to be eating animals. I mean, so many non-animal products are available that, we're not in those times anymore. So I would say that. And I would also say that, we have a responsibility as a species to evolve and change and get rid of the ways of life that no longer serve humanity and the planet, and of course the animals themselves. And I will also say that just because something is legal doesn't make it right. So just because it's legal for animals to be killed on factory farms doesn't make it ethically right.
Mm-hmm. And to go on top of that, so is it morally justifiable? Is it the only morally justifiable diet to be vegan? How do you feel about this position, and do you believe it's necessary for everyone to be vegan to achieve animal rights?
I mean, I do. I do. And it's not about vegans being better than anybody else. And I really want to take a moment to dismantle that idea, because I know that, there are a lot of people out in society who say, oh, vegans are just put themselves up on this pedestal and they think they're better than everyone because they're not eating torture or, whatever. And it's not about being, better or being above anybody else. It's really about the things that I illustrated in this presentation, is that it goes beyond our personal responsibility and our personal lives. We, as a collective species, we really do need to move to plant-based. We need to get rid of the animal-based consumption and shift to plant-based for all the reasons I gave. And so I think that sometimes vegans are, misjudged in terms of we are trying so hard to raise awareness. We are such a small percentage of, the population on this earth and it's growing. Veganism is growing, but it's just that we feel so strongly that these animals, they do not deserve this. Our planet does not deserve this. And, our own health doesn't deserve it either. So it goes beyond our own selves.
Thank you for that, Brittany. Also, I did see in your presentation, you did mention a lot about factory farms. And I just wanted to ask you, is the argument that factory farming is necessary to meet global food demand, is that necessarily true? How do you respond to someone who says that there needs to be factory farming because of the increase of population and the demand for food?
But see, it wouldn't need to be if we would shift the entire focus away from animal-based farming to plant-based farming, because as I mentioned earlier, a massive percentage of the majority of grains that are produced on cropland goes to feed the animals who are being raised for food. And so we do not need to be producing food from factory farms to feed the growing human population. We just need to stop the animal farming and replace it with plant farming. So I don't buy that argument. I've heard it a lot, and it doesn't hold up. It really doesn't.
And also, I saw that you mentioned that liquid nitrogen leak in that one factory farm. Was it the chicken farm? That's one example of an environmental impact on factory farming, and also to socially detrimental to the workers there as well. But are there any other environmental and social impacts you can touch upon to factory farming?
Environmental and social impacts. Well, yeah, I did give numerous examples in my presentation about the effects on the environment and you said social effects?
Yes, social impacts of factory farming.
Social impacts. In what regard exactly, like in social effects, like
To the workers in the environment.
oh yeah. I mean, just basically everything that I was talking about is that there are issues on various levels, and they're far-reaching, and they're intertwined and connected. And I feel like it's like the domino effect or the ripple effect, because the exploitation that's happening to the animals who are the ones being tortured then really does expand out to cause exploitation to humans. And so, yeah, I mean, it affects the environment, socially, all of it. It's just all connected. There's no denying the connections.
Mhm. And in your opinion, what is the most pressing animal rights issue of our time?
That's a good question and a hard one. The most pressing animal rights issue of our time. Well, that's difficult because, all animals are equal in my mind. And so I hate to prioritize a certain issue or a certain species over any others. But I would say that based on the damaging effects to the environment and public health and personal health, mental health and physical health, all of that, I would say the factory farms and slaughterhouses and just animal agriculture in general. I mean, animal agriculture and the devastating effects that it causes, to me, I would say is probably the most pressing animal rights issue currently because of the way it impacts the planet and health and everything. I mean, the animals suffer in so many different capacities and so many forms of exploitation, but the ones in factory farms and slaughterhouses, I mean, it's utterly horrifying what they go through. There's no better word for it than that. It's horrifying. It's like the stuff from nightmares, really. I recommend people watch Dominion, Earthlings, to see what these animals experience in their short lives in these facilities.
Yeah, and just to get maybe specific, how are cows treated and raised to be eaten as of 2023? The conditions they're in.
Well, animals, when it comes to factory farms, they are overcrowded. They live in warehouse type buildings. This goes for cows, pigs, chickens. They are, turkeys. They're just crammed by the many thousands in filthy warehouse buildings. They're not living out in green fields in the sunshine. They're like living in darkness and crowded conditions. They get trampled. They get injured by each other. They're stressed out. And then, so that's their short, miserable lives. And then they end up, cows would either, with the bolt gun, like stun gun, and then have their like throat slit, or, I mean, there's gas chambers, often for pigs. There's grotesque methods. I mean, it's 2023. This should not be happening to anyone, regardless of species.
Yeah, and I have seen the documentary Dominion. It was very eye-opening, to say the least.
Yeah.
So how do you respond to critics who argue that animal rights activists are too extreme or unrealistic in their demands?
Well, I think that the extreme factor that often is seen that way it really comes from our sense of urgency about all the stuff that I was talking about. But, first and foremost, for the animals that are subjected to these horrifying, torturous methods, it's like, I mean, is it extreme to not want a baby pig to be put in a gas chamber? I don't think so. Is it extreme to not want little chicks, cute cute baby chicks to be ground up alive, the male chicks in the egg industry who are of no use because they can't lay eggs. It's not extreme to not be okay with these things. And so, and we have an obligation, regardless of what people think, we have an obligation to speak up for the victims, because I think any of us would say that if we were in their positions, if we were that female cow on the dairy farm who's being impregnated multiple times, artificially inseminated, she gives birth, her baby's ripped away. And then, any of these animals in this situation, if we were in their place, we'd want someone to speak up for us. We'd want someone to advocate for us. We would want someone to organize a protest for us. The animals can't do it themselves. So I just say, regardless of whether people think it's extreme, life is short, and I'm going to do what I can on this planet to make it a better place. And that comes with speaking up for other species and justice for all.
Yeah, and I'm sure that a lot of individuals in here would want to contribute, and even the people who are going to watch this on YouTube later down the line. But in your opinion, what is the most important thing that individuals can do to support animal rights, regardless of their level of involvement?
Well, getting educated and I guess getting on board with the message, the mission of the animal rights movement, which is not limited to non-human animals. Animal rights movement, focuses on non-human animals because, again, they can't speak up for themselves. They can't organize their own protests. They are at our mercy. But it really is about a liberation for all. So it's justice for all. And that includes non-human animals in the whole scope of things. So sometimes animal rights activists, we get told like, well, what about all the human issues? And it's like, it's not that we don't care about those, but, there's lots of people working on different issues. The animals, because they can't do it for themselves, they're absolutely completely reliant and dependent on us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to speak on the impact of the animal rights movement on the food industry, how is that driving change in consumer demand?
The shift in the movement, and how does it affect consumer demand?
Yeah, so to speak on the impact of the animal rights movement on the food industry and how it's driving the change in consumer demand.
Yeah, so, definitely there has been a major shift in the plant-based products that are available. The fact that fast food restaurants like Carl's Jr. and Burger King have plant-based burgers in itself is a big example to illustrate the change of times. And that those things are huge. I would say that, because of the health effects of animal products, the detrimental health effects, the state of our planet, and of course, the animal cruelty itself, all these reasons, contribute to more and more plant-based products. However, let's be real, these companies, there are ethical companies who want to create products that don't cause harm to animals and that don't cause harm to people's health and to the planet. But when, from a business standpoint, the companies are not going to make products that don't sell, because at the end of the day, they're looking to make money and they need, to turn a profit. So the fact that there are so many plant-based options in restaurants and so many vegan restaurants, and even the plant-based burgers in the fast food restaurants, goes to show that there's money to be made from it. There's money to be made from these products because the consciousness is shifting and more people are buying plant-based products. More and more people are reducing their meat consumption. They're moving towards a vegan lifestyle, or they already have. I am very much a proponent of veganism as a lifestyle, not a diet. But if people are going plant-based for their health, great. If people are going plant-based for the environment, great. My first and foremost focus as an ethical vegan is for the animals, but all of it's super important. I really care about all of it: health, environment, everything.
Great. All right, and one more final question, Brittany. How would you define animal rights, and what principles do you think are the most important to advocate for?
Great question. Well, I would define animal rights as justice and liberation for non-human animals. In fact, I actually have, let me just pull this up because it definitely applies. At the beginning of my book, the very beginning, I define animal rights, the rights of animals claimed on ethical grounds to the same humane treatment and protection from exploitation and abuse that are accorded to humans. So it's about equality. It's about dismantling speciesism and just recognizing that whether a dog or a pig or a human, we all deserve protection. We all deserve to be free from harm, and we all deserve to not be exploited. And then activism is, born from this mission of animal rights. Then we do activism to try to carry out that message and move forward with the mission.
Thanks, Brittany, for that. And thank you so much for answering our questions and for your presentation. I know that, the whole audience might want to thank you for having you come here today. So audience, what do you have to say to Brittany right now?
Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you,
What a great
Brittany.
presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
What are the dangers associated with water fasting?
Thank you for being here.
Modified